Okay, I will take the opportunity first to introduce Jacobo and me. I will do this talk myself, but we've been developing and discussing all the ideas together in the last days to bring together here a proposal that, or an experience that we're living from a concrete, more research-based project in which, from the university, the aim is to produce from the university a much closer interaction with social movements and learn mutually and bring us together. So, contested cities. For contested cities, we received a European Union grant to bring together mainly radical researchers, mainly geographers from different European countries and Latin America. We're based in Madrid, in Leeds, in Buenos Aires, in Rio de Janeiro, in Mexico, and in Santiago de Chile. And we're working about 60 persons from academia in this project, basically on 3 ideas. We're trying to develop a network, or we're trying to develop an exchange network between the European Union, or between our partners in Europe, in Leeds and Madrid, and the partners in Latin America. And this means between people who are working and who are researching, and who are mostly of us also activists in the cities in Latin America and Europe, to provide through this exchange a common research network and also an action network to change things in the cities we live and in the cities where we work. The main idea of the content, of the topics of this network has to do with one of the key issues worldwide in this moment in urban development, and we've been talking about this in the last days also, which is gentrification. Gentrification, and despite if we like this word or do not like this word, the term may help us to visualize some of the negative effects of contemporary urban development. Gentrification now is everywhere, basically in most cities of the world. Gentrification is nothing else than class war. Gentrification is about people losing their homes, people being evicted from their homes, and people being thrown out to the periphery, not only physically, but also discursively thrown out to the periphery of the society. And the basic, or one of the mechanisms, it's not only a mechanism of capitalism, but also of what we've been discussing here, of the cluster of capitalism with the bourgeois state and of urban politics. So basically, we ask ourselves, observing that everywhere in all our cities, gentrification in any kind of its possible forms is taking place, how can we fight gentrification, and how can we build together an anti-gentrification network with scientists and urban social movements. And basically, many of the things we've been talking about here in these days have to do with these 2 points, with gentrification and with, obviously, urban social movements. When we're talking about the appropriation of urban space, and if we talk about the subversive use of urban space, if we talk about the struggles for housing, if we talk about the ways we want to discuss another kind of urban planning, or if we squat houses, or whatever we do in urban space, we're talking about the fights against gentrification. So, having stated this, as a short introduction to what basically in terms of topic we are trying to do in this network, which just began a couple of months ago. We started in October our work, so we will not be able to present the golden key now, but we will just try to discuss some ideas that we want to do and hope that we can give some or receive a lot of new ideas from all of you and discuss them later. So we're basically thinking about 5 points that might be important also for the possible networks we might create in the future for setting up a combative response to the crisis in Southern Europe. And these 5 points, I will try to develop them rapidly. First, we think that something that has not, or has been basically absent here in this workshop, although everyone, or almost everyone, was using PowerPoint presentations and visualizing information here and using photos and whatever, we really think that we have to enforce the power of the visual for our struggles. We live in a visual world. Today it's, the visuality has much more importance than a couple of decades ago. We all use photos, videos and whatever and send them to Twitter and to everywhere. And we think that we can find ways through visual methods to communicate differently and to think about the ways social realities and hegemonial realities are being constructed by different actors. So there is a particular role of the visual methods, also as a part of a participatory research method, that make us ask about how different actors, private capitalist investors, how the state, how social movements, how common neighbors in a neighborhood use visual representations to construct their reality. And we really think that this might be an interesting point to develop further collaborations. And also think about our own role, both as researchers and activists, in this production of visual representations. The second point, which is basically really necessary, is to think about how the university as an educational or part of the education system and social movements and also artists who produce visual representations can be brought and better brought together in a commonly shared working environment that develops itself in and outside the university. Much of us much of those who presented in these days have a kind of relation with the university, and at the same time we think that these relations can mutually stimulate us. In our project, for example, we develop, as with many people in the network, we have the opportunity to develop each 6 months a kind of workshop similar to this in the different cities that participate in the network. We did a very small first kick-off meeting in Madrid in October 2012. We're now implementing a photo competition about urban conflicts and gentrification. We're planning a video competition about subversive appropriation of the city and gentrification. aspects that help us to create a community, and aspects that help us with the exposition and the video cycle, for example, that help us then to create also a public awareness about the issues we're discussing, and to reach other parts of the population that usually are not active in social movements. And it helps us to create also alliances with artists who not necessarily or have the same approach than activists. We later also think about neighborhood workshop, etc. But this is still in a first in a more advanced phase of the project. Third aspects. We think that if we talk about bringing together science or university and social movements, we have to think about translating the logics of science into something that would be an understandable language for everyone. It is clear that within the university system there's a kind of way of producing that nothing has to do with the reality outside these buildings. And until certain degree, it's necessary to subvert this kind of logic of the university and produce something that might help produce something in collaboration with actors that might help to translate science into a kind of normal language that can help us to empower ourselves and bring our messages better to the media. I would just think about something that was said today in the morning when comrades from Portugal, I think, said, yes, I should say in 1 minute how 6 years of work, what we did in 6 years of work. And these are really necessary tasks to be able to translate what we are doing, both what the university is doing and what social movements are doing to the common media, to create other forms of knowledge production and other forms of hegemony. This goes hand in hand with the fourth point, which has to do obviously with all the devolution and the possibility to create through collaboration between the university and social and urban social movements strategies for empowerment. For example, we're working in an example in Buenos Aires with scientists, social workers, and neighbors to produce visual material that helps, basically a documentary about the neighborhood, in a poor neighborhood, that helps to create political awareness and will have a kind of double meaning. We will have a longer documentary for the general public, and then a short documentary that will be given or will be used to discuss with politicians the changes that are required or that are demanded by the neighbors. And fortunately, the great luck we have is that in countries as in Latin America, or at least in some countries in Latin America, and some cities in Latin America, the local politics respond to these demands. And this is brings me to the last point, where I think if we think about the crisis in the crisis in cities in Southern Europe, we think that it might be important to learn from the creativity and many of the successful strategies that have been developed in Latin America. Of course, we have also to think critically about what has been occurring in social movements in Latin America in the last years, but there are many examples that can help us to think about different solutions and different ways of arguing and different ways of organizing us with regard to a crisis that in Latin America 15 or 20 years ago was quite similar in terms of economic destruction of, or in terms of destruction of the economic base of broader parts of the population. And this is all that I wanted to say. Thank you.